Okay. What about something like women in the workplace?
Yeah, it's a bad idea. Now, women have always been allowed to work, and women ought to always be allowed to work. However, the incentives which are produced by the United States government are supposed to be for the health and the welfare of the nation. If you're talking about the health and welfare of the nation, then you want to push policy which will allow women to stay at home with their children, which is going to be the best setup possible. But again, this would be a pro patriarchy position because you'd be allowing men at that point and incentivizing men to be the head of the household, the head of the family, to be the breadwinner. In this case, this would be considered oppressive from the feminist ethos.
So, in terms of prescription versus description, then if we talk about patriarchy, do you think that is it a feminist talking point? Is it a feminist policy to have egalitarian laws in regard to things like voting?
Yeah.
Like I'm of the belief that, for
All
example,
egalitarianism, which is moved from women's movements, are always designed for a liberation from patriarchy. All. There's not any that are not. Anytime women collectively are pushing towards any type of what is considered egalitarianism, it is feminism. It is a dismantling of patriarchal structures and systems, period.
okay, so the reason why I bring that up is because when it comes to, let's say, something like voting, right? So I'm not a fan of universal suffrage. I've talked about this on my channel. I'm in favor of I mean, I think there's several different systems that could work. Maybe one vote per household with children and a married couple, service through citizenship, net taxpayers, property owners, you name it. If I believe that men and women would equally have the ability to earn that right, though in practice it would be overwhelmingly male. We know that from stats right now as to who exactly pays the most taxes and owns the most property. Would that be a feminist perspective that I have?
If the movement of that was not the end goal to make it patriarchal, then yes, it would be a feminist position, which is why I say that you're a
So the is
feminist.
the intent the intent matters more than, I guess, the outcome in that regard?
Well, no, the outcome matters more than the intent. The
The
outcome is
outcome would
for
be
patriarchy. That is the outcome we're looking for. Is for a
the outcome would
patriarchal
be more
system.
patriarchal than what we have
Yeah,
currently.
but the entailment is it also may not be. It depends on which system. You haven't exactly defined which system you would implement in order to make sure that it's patriarchal. You just said there are many we could choose from. Well, that's great. That's swell, but it doesn't actually tell me anything. So no,
I mean, which
the
system that I
outcome.
just mentioned would have more women earning the franchise?
Well, I don't. You would have to be like be specific. What system are you advocating for here?
If it were net taxpayers or property owners, both of those groups are overwhelmingly male. Households, well, I mean, it's one vote for household. The only one where there would be some ambiguity perhaps would be service through citizenship. But if we look at military service, that's also overwhelmingly male.
Yeah, I agree. But is the point of this ultimately, from your perspective, to make a better governing body? Or is the point of this ultimately for you to advance a patriarchal structure inside of society? This is the distinction I'm
I
asking.
don't think you can divorce those two things.
Yeah, I
To
think
be
you. Well,
better,
I
it
think
will
you
be more
can. So what's
male
it? Well,
dominated.
can you just
Absolutely.
answer the question? Are you trying to advocate for a patriarchal society, or aren't you?
I'm trying to advocate for a better society that is
That's not
one
my
that would be more
question. That's not my
male
question. Answer
dominated,
my question.
100%.
Don't be bad faith. Do you want
Oh,
a
I'm not.
patriarchal society or don't you?
If that patriarchal is one led by men, then yes, this would be led by men. It would be better.
Yeah, so ultimately your goal is the advocation of a patriarchal society, correct?
Correct.
Okay,
Yeah.
and that if that is the ultimate goal, then no, that is not feminism. But I wanted to make sure as we dove into this that that's actually what the goal is. Because what it sounded like to me is no, I want a better society. I want a more gooder society. I want something that looks and acts like in some way that I want. That really has nothing to do with anything. I want to know specifically if you have feminist ideals or you do not have feminist
But
ideals.
I mean, I suppose that I don't have feminist ideals, but the reason why I talk about all of those things because I don't think it's an argument where it's men therefore better. I think that's an oversimplification. I think, yeah, if we look at all the different strengths that men versus women have, it's not just that they're men. And I think kind of just trying to oversimplify it in those ways, you're going to lose a lot of people who.
Well, I think making it overly complex actually makes us lose far more people. So
But
just because
it's
you
not
take
like, have you heard of peaceful Latinas?
yeah, they're idiots. But just because you
Yes,
take
but
a
they're actually someone who agree with my position.
That's
But
nice.
they've
They're
been
a bunch
hating
of
on me
liberal
on.
scumbags. They're a couple of
Hang on
liberal
a second. They
scumbags.
agree with my position, but when it's marketed as, oh, just repeal the 19th, like their brain shuts
Oh,
off.
yay.
They
Progressives
automatically
agree with
don't.
your position. Awesome. That's
Well,
great. Swell.
yeah, we live in a society where we
Did you just use the
be
we
able
live in
to
a society?
persuade people to our. We must be able to persuade
You don't
people. So
persuade the devil by dancing with him. The devil persuades you. That's how that ends up working. So what happens is
But then why?
by
But if
you
you,
moving
I
off
don't
the
think you
message.
actually
Let me
agree that
finish my
because
point.
you're
Hang
one
on.
of the
Let me finish
biggest
my
debate
point.
channels you just
Let me
said.
finish my point. Yeah, their ideology could be challenged in a debate channel. That's true. That's not me dancing with them politically and saying, oh, you happen to agree with my policy prescription, so that makes them good. That's absurd. It doesn't make them good. Dancing with a bunch of progressives like Destiny and the rest of these coomers and acting like they're on your team because they agree with certain issues is absurd. These people are fucking horrible. They're horrible people. They do horrible things. And for us to make these kinds of like bizarre advocations that, oh, the concept is so complex, the average Joe could just never really understand it. There's so much nuance. There's not really that much nuance. It's not
I don't
really
think
that. It's not
complex.
really
I
that
think people
complex.
absolutely can understand it, but we have to take the time to explain it first before they do.
Yeah, and that's exactly what I do. That's what debate does. Debate helps flesh out these ideas and these ideologies so that people can understand it. But these people are not our
So
friends. They're not our buddies. They're not our pals. They
I don't
absolutely
think they
want to
are.
dismantle the society in which we live. And they're pretty awful. So no, I don't care what progressives might agree with your positions.
Yeah, but it goes to show that the positions themselves are sound, and they're sound to the point where
It
you
doesn't
might
show
even
that.
be able to implement.
No, it
Sorry.
doesn't show that it's sound just because people agree. Some people agree with them. That's an absurd
I mean,
statement.
if you agree that it's not a bad system, and if, or at the very least, not a feminist system, I'll be clear there. And you even have like some progressives getting on board with the idea. I don't think that's something to scoff at, and I think we're being needlessly. I don't want to say condescending, but I mean a
We
little
need,
bit
well,
there in
good.
terms
We
of.
need to gatekeep more. We need to make sure that we're not letting in the most horrifying people on planet Earth so that we can advocate for a system which they will then corrupt. That's how
But
progressive communism
who's
got
letting in?
power to
Who's
begin with.
letting in? What are you talking about? Letting into
I'm
what?
saying that what ends up happening is this. It's the curious case of Charlie Kirk and Con Inc. It's the same exact thing. What happens is you create big tent ideology around something which is hyper specific, and then the people who you bring in begin to pollute the message. In Charlie Kirk's case, it was the LGBTQ who he wanted to come in to add to the big tent style messaging that he had for his brand of conservatism. The same exact thing can happen within whatever ideology you're advocating for. The more horrific and horrible people you bring in to advocate for that ideology, the more they're going to end up polluting it. That's how it works in real time. That's how politics operates. That's how lobbyists begin to gain control of messaging and how they end up completely destroying what the message originally was.